All right, let's dive in. Today we're breaking down how the best project managers move beyond just planning for risks and actually start taking action when things get real. This is all about turning that what if document into a here's what we do now game plan. You know, every single project eventually hits this moment. And a good plan, well, it can't be some document that just sits on a shelf collecting dust. It has to be a living, breathing playbook that you're ready to use the second things start to go sideways. So before we jump into the playbook itself, we really need to get our heads around the framework. The way we think about project risk has changed a lot over the years, and it's super important to understand the two main mindsets out there. We've seen a pretty big evolution here. The old way of thinking was very rigid, almost like following a recipe. You have specific inputs, you do specific things, you get a specific output. The newer approach is much more flexible, focused on principles and adapting as you go. It's kind of like the difference between following a blueprint to the letter versus having a master builder's intuition. Both get the job done, but the approach is totally different. Okay, so what are the actual tools in this playbook? When a negative risk, a threat, starts looming, a project manager basically has 4 core strategies to pick from. Let's break them down. First up, we have avoidance. Now, this is your power move. You're not just trying to soften the blow of a risk, you're actually changing the project plan to make sure that risk can't even touch you. You're sidestepping the bullet entirely. Next, there's transfer. This one is pretty straightforward. You're making the risk someone else's problem. You shift the financial hits or the operational headache over to a third party, like an insurance company or a contractor. Of course, this usually costs you something. Now, mitigation is probably the strategy you're going to use the most. You're not getting rid of the risk completely, but you're taking smart, proactive steps to make it less likely to happen and, if it does happen, less painful. It's like putting a sprinkler system in a building. You hope you never need it, but you're sure glad it's there if a fire breaks out. And finally, there's acceptance. Now, this is a conscious, strategic choice to live with a risk. But let me be clear, this is not the same as ignoring it. You do this when the risk is pretty small or when the cost of dealing with it is just way too high. And smart managers will pair acceptance with a contingency fund, a rainy day fund, just in case. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this stuff actually works in the messy real world. We're gonna start with a massive $60 million highway construction project. So the project team had a monster of a threat on their hands. The original plan meant 2 solid years of traffic nightmares for thousands of commuters every single day. We're not just talking about an inconvenience here. This was a risk that could blow up the schedule, balloon the budget, and create a PR disaster. And what they did was, honestly, it was brilliant. Instead of trying to juggle angry drivers and construction cones for 2 years, they went with a bold avoidance strategy. They ripped the Band-Aid off, shut the entire road down for a shorter period, and as a result, they finished faster and under budget. They didn't just manage the risk, they completely erased it. Now, this is a fantastic question for any project team to debate. They chose avoidance, but what if a full shutdown just wasn't an option? What could a mitigation strategy have looked like here? How could they have just lessened the pain instead of avoiding it completely? Of course, traffic wasn't the only ghost in the machine. On a project this big, especially when you're digging into the earth, the risk of surprise costs from weird geology or a last-minute design change is always hanging over your head. So here, they use this really clever 2-pronged attack. First, they used transfer. By signing a fixed-price contract, they basically shifted a huge chunk of the financial risk for overruns onto their contractor. Second, for the risks they couldn't transfer, they used acceptance, but they did it smartly by setting aside their own pot of contingency money as a safety net. This brings up a really key strategic point. When you transfer risk with a contract, how does that really change the game for the project owner? And, just as important, what new kinds of pressure does the contractor now have to deal with? Okay, let's switch gears completely. We're going from the world of concrete and steel to a hospital that's rolling out a brand new electronic health record system. The stakes are just as high, but the risks, well, they are a completely different animal. So in this situation, the biggest threat wasn't something physical, it was human. Think about it. What happens if the doctors and nurses, the very people this multi-million-dollar system is designed to help, just plain refuse to use it? The whole project is a catastrophic failure. Their response was just a textbook example of mitigation, but with a really important human touch. They did more than just software training. They created a network of change champions, respected colleagues who could provide peer support and build trust from the ground up. It was about winning hearts and minds, not just teaching people where to click. And this case really drives home the point that risk management is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about leadership. So let's think about that. What other soft skills, what other interpersonal skills are absolutely essential when you're trying to manage risks that are tied to people's habits and emotions? And now let's talk about the big technical nightmare. Imagine being responsible for moving decades of sensitive patient health records. A single mistake, one lost file or corrupted entry could have a direct and devastating impact on patient safety. The stakes just don't get any higher. And look at the sophisticated blend of strategies they used here. They mitigated the risk by doing a very careful, phased migration and by keeping the old system running in parallel as a safety net. But they also used avoidance. They made the tough call to not migrate certain data they considered non-essential, which simplified the whole process and lowered the odds of a critical error. And this leads to a really tough question for any manager out there. The team decided some data was non-essential. In a healthcare setting, where patient history is everything, what criteria would you even use to make that call? This is where project management theory smacks right into real-world ethics. So we've looked at a highway and we've looked at a hospital. Two completely different worlds, yet they were wrestling with some very similar core challenges. So what are the big universal lessons we can pull from all this? I think it really boils down to this. First, there's no silver bullet. The best project managers use a dynamic mix of all four strategies. Second, risk management is never one and done. It's a continuous, ongoing conversation. And finally, as that hospital case showed so clearly, engaging with people isn't a soft skill. It's one of the most powerful risk mitigation tools you have in your entire toolkit. And so I'll leave you with one final thought to wrestle with. We've seen avoidance, transfer, mitigation, and acceptance. As a leader, which one of those paths do you think requires the most courage to take, and why? That's definitely something to think about as you build your own project playbook.